I am George Washington, 76 years old, and I drove 42 miles through Alaskan ice to be told I wasn't wanted at Christmas. My son stood in the doorway of the house I'd been paying for, and the first thing I saw past his shoulder were the tactical boots I'd bought my grandson 2 months ago, sitting by the stairs like they were waiting for someone who'd never arrive. "Dad, you're not expected for Christmas this year." The words came out flat, rehearsed. Marcus had his arms crossed, blocking the entrance like I was a stranger instead of the man who'd raised him. Behind him, through the picture window I'd helped pay to replace after the ice storm, I could see the Christmas tree with its white lights. Lauren had insisted on white, not colored. More elegant, she'd said. More refined. Beyond the tree, I caught movement. Richard Mitchell unpacking luggage in the living room. Patricia already holding a wine glass, surveying the space like she was inspecting property she owned. Her parents, white, wealthy, from Boston. Lauren's parents flew in. Marcus continued, his voice picking up a defensive edge. They have traditions, family traditions. It's complicated. Complicated. That was the word he chose. Not sorry. Not next time. Complicated. I'd left Palmer at 4:30 in the afternoon when the sun was already gone and the highway was more ice than asphalt. My truck is 20 years old, but reliable like most things I've kept in my life. The drive takes an hour on good days, 90 minutes when the weather turns mean. Today had been mean. I looked at my son, really looked at him. When had he started holding his shoulders like that, tight, defensive, like a man expecting confrontation? When had he learned to look past me instead of at me? "Understood," I said. His face showed relief. He'd expected a fight. I'd given him 30 years of not fighting back, so why would tonight be different? "We'll catch up after the holidays," he added like he was promising to return a borrowed tool. "Maybe New Year's. We'll do dinner." I nodded once, turned, walked back to my truck. The cold hit me harder on the way back than it had walking up, or maybe I was just feeling it differently now. The boots by the stairs had been size 6. Isaiah was 8 years old and growing fast. I'd bought them at the military surplus store in Wasilla because I knew they'd last, because I knew how Alaska winters could bite through cheap materials and leave a boy's feet frozen. I'd driven down for his birthday in October, the party I wasn't invited to but showed up for anyway because a grandfather shouldn't need an invitation to see his grandson turn 8. I'd stayed 45 minutes, long enough to hand Isaiah the boots, watch him try them on, see his face light up. Not long enough for Lauren's discomfort to turn into something she'd have to address out loud. In my truck, I sat with the engine running. The heat took its time coming through the vents. That's when I pulled out my phone. "First National Bank, this is Aaron speaking. How can I help you?" "This is George Washington. Account ending in 4738. I need to cancel the recurring transfer." A pause. Computer keys clicking. "Sir, that's the mortgage assistance payment to Marcus Washington. Are you sure you want to cancel that?" "Cancel it. Effective immediately." "Can I ask the reason for the cancellation?" "No." "Sir, I need to note something in the system for—" "Write this down. The reason is that the recipient told me I wasn't expected. That's all the reason you need." I hung up. For the first time in 4 years, my budget would balance. For the first time in 4 years, I wouldn't be paying $1,875 a month to fund a life that had no room for me in it. I put the truck in reverse and backed out of the driveway. Through the rearview mirror, I watched the house grow smaller. The lights in every window, the wreath on the door, the 2-car garage that had needed a new opener last spring, the one I'd paid to replace. As I turned onto the main road, my phone buzzed. A text from Lauren. "George Marcus said you seemed upset. Everything okay? Not Dad, never Dad, just George." I didn't reply. I drove the 42 miles back to Palmer in silence, watching the darkness eat up the road ahead of me. Somewhere around mile marker 17, I started making a list in my head. Not a list of grievances. A list of facts. Numbers, dates, receipts. By the time I pulled into my driveway, the list had $94,000 on it, and I was just getting started. Let me take you back 4 years to where this all began. It was February 2020, and Marcus called me on a Tuesday evening. I remember because Tuesdays were when I taught my adult education class at the community center, helping folks get their GEDs. I'd just gotten home, still had my coat on when the phone rang. "Dad, I need to talk to you about something." His voice had that quality it gets when he's working up to asking for help. Higher pitched, faster, like he's trying to get the words out before he loses courage. "What's going on?" "Lauren and I found a house in Eagle River. It's perfect. 3 bedrooms, good school district near the base. Everything we've been looking for." I waited. There was more coming. "But we've got a problem. The accident last year, the medical bills, they tanked my credit. And Lauren's student loans are still showing late payments from when she was in grad school. The bank won't approve us without a co-signer." Co-signer. I'd been in banking long enough to know what that meant. You're not just signing a paper. You're signing away your financial safety if things go wrong. "How much are we talking about?" $325,000. "We can cover most of it, but we need $30,000 for the down payment and someone with good credit to co-sign." $30,000. That was most of my emergency fund. The money I'd saved from 32 years teaching, from driving the same truck for 2 decades, from making my own coffee instead of buying it, from living in a house I'd paid off 15 years ago. "Let me think about it. Dad, we need to move fast. There are 3 other offers. Lauren's parents said they'd help, but they want us closer to Boston. This is our chance to stay in Alaska, to stay near you." That last part got me. Stay near you. I hadn't seen Marcus as much as I wanted since he'd married Lauren. She had opinions about how much time was appropriate for adult children to spend with their parents. Opinions that usually ended with Marcus making excuses about being busy. I talked to Maria that night, my wife of 43 years, the woman who could read people better than anyone I'd ever known. We sat at the kitchen table with the paperwork Marcus had emailed over. "George, I need to say something and I need you to really hear me." I looked up from the loan documents. "Lauren sees your color before she sees your character." The words hung in the air between us. "That's harsh, Maria." "It's true. I've watched her. The way she introduces you to her friends. This is Marcus's dad. Never by name. Never with pride. The way she steers conversations away when you talk about your military service. The way she flinches when you speak with that Louisiana accent you've never quite lost. She's just young. She'll learn. She's 33 years old. That's not young. That's old enough to know better." Maria put her hand over mine. "I'm not saying don't help him. He's our son. I'm saying go into this with your eyes open. Protect yourself." I should have listened harder. I signed the co-signer documents. I wrote the check for $30,000. When Marcus and Lauren moved into that house in March 2020, I helped them unpack. I assembled furniture. I installed curtain rods. I mulched the flower beds. In April, Marcus called. "Dad, the promotion fell through. Company's doing layoffs because of COVID. Can you cover the mortgage for a month or 2? 1 month became 2, 2 became 6, 6 became a year. The furnace died in the middle of January 2021. $4,200 for a new one. We'll pay you back when the stimulus check comes," Marcus promised. The kitchen needed updating before Lauren's parents visited in summer 2021. $12,000 for new cabinets and granite countertops. "It's an investment in the house," Lauren explained. "Our house," she said, "not the house you're paying for." Isaiah started private school in fall 2021, $14,000 a year. "The public schools here aren't good enough," Lauren insisted. "We want him to have the same opportunities we had." The roof started leaking in spring 2022, $18,500. "Insurance won't cover it," Marcus said. "Acts of God, property taxes for 2 years, $8,800. "We're appealing the assessment," Marcus explained. "Once that goes through, we'll square up." Medical bills when Isaiah broke his arm. $6,200. "Our deductible reset," Lauren said. "Every month, $1,875. Mortgage payment, like clockwork, from my account to theirs." I kept a spreadsheet. Teachers are good at that. Dates, amounts, purpose, notes. By December 2024, the total was $94,372. And I'd convinced myself it was worth it. Because family takes care of family. Because my son needed me. Because my grandson would know his grandfather. Until I wasn't expected. Back in Palmer, I didn't go straight to bed. Sleep wasn't coming tonight anyway. I went to my home office, the small room off the kitchen that Maria used to call my command center. The filing cabinet stood in the corner, olive green government issue from when I retired. 4 drawers. The bottom one was labeled household. That's where I kept everything. I pulled the drawer open and lifted out the accordion folder. It was heavier than I remembered. 4 years of paper weighs more than you'd think. I spread everything across the dining table. Bank statements first. Every month since March 2020 highlighted in yellow where the $1,875 transferred out. 48 months. 48 yellow lines. Next came the receipts. I'm old-fashioned that way. When I pay for something big, I keep the paper. The furnace invoice from Anchorage Heating and Air. The kitchen renovation contract with Lauren's signature at the bottom thanking me in the notes section. The private school tuition statements with my credit card number on file. The roofing estimate with my approval signature. Every single one I'd kept. Not because I planned for this moment, because that's what you do when you're responsible with money. You document. You track. You know where every dollar goes. Then I opened my laptop. Lauren's Facebook profile was public. She posted frequently. Very frequently. I started scrolling back through 4 years of updates. March 2020. Sarah 2020. Closing day. Can't believe this beautiful house is ours. Hard work pays off. Blessed beyond measure. January 2021. New furnace installed just in time. House projects never end, but so grateful we can make this place our own. June 2021. Kitchen renovation complete. Everything we dreamed of. When you work hard and plan carefully, dreams really do come true. September 2021. First day at Heritage Academy. So proud of our choice to invest in quality education. Our son deserves the best. April 2022. New roof going on this week. Adulting is expensive, but home ownership is so worth it. Everything we have, we've earned together. Earned together. I read that line 3 times. Took a screenshot. Added it to a new folder on my desktop labeled Documentation. Every post that mentioned the house, the renovations, the school, the improvements. Every caption that said we did this or we chose that or we worked for this. 23 posts over 4 years. 23 times Lauren told the world about the life she and Marcus had built. 0 mentions of me. I created a second folder, labeled it Communications, started going through my email. Dad, we're a little short this month. Can you cover the mortgage? Just this once. George, the property tax bill came. We're appealing but need to pay it now. Can you help? Hey Dad, Isaiah needs a new winter coat and boots. School expenses are killing us. Any chance you could send a couple hundred? Each email I dragged into the folder. 37 emails over 4 years, 37 requests, 0 mentions of repayment. The third folder was the hardest one. Alaska is a one-party consent state for recording conversations. I'd learned that when I was teaching civics. It means if you're part of a conversation, you can record it without telling the other person. I'd started recording my calls with Marcus 2 years ago, not because I didn't trust him, because I didn't trust my own memory anymore. 74 years old at the time, and I'd started forgetting details of conversations. The recordings helped me remember. Now they helped me document. Just 1 more month, Dad. The promotion is definitely coming through. We'll pay you back as soon as the tax refund arrives. Lauren's parents offered to help, but we'd rather keep this between us. You know how they are. This is temporary. We just need to get through this rough patch. Temporary. That word appeared in 11 different recordings. I sat back and looked at the 3 folders on my screen. Evidence. That's what this was. Not revenge, not anger, just evidence of a pattern I'd been too willing to ignore. My phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. Dad, can we talk tomorrow? I think there was a misunderstanding. I looked at the folders, at the screenshots, at the 48 months of bank statements. There was no misunderstanding. I turned off my phone and went to bed. The text came at 9:43 p.m. Not from Marcus, from Lauren. George, Marcus said you canceled the transfer. I'm assuming this is temporary. Can we talk? I read it twice. No greeting. No apology for earlier. No acknowledgement that I'd been turned away at the door. Just an assumption that I'd fall back in line and an expectation that we'd talk it through like reasonable people. I typed back 1 word. Let's. The phone rang 30 seconds later. Marcus, not Lauren. That told me something right there. She'd made him do the calling. Dad. His voice had an edge to it. The tone he used when he was working up to justifying something he knew was wrong. I didn't say anything. Silence is a tactic I learned in the Army. When you stay quiet, people fill the space. And when they fill it, they reveal more than they intended. Aaron at the bank called me. He said you canceled the standing transfer. More silence from me. Dad, are you there? I'm here. Look, I know today was awkward, but you can't just stop paying the mortgage. You're punishing us. You're punishing Isaiah. He's 8 years old. You're going to make him lose his house over one misunderstanding. Misunderstanding. I let the words sit between us. Is that what we're calling it? Lauren's parents have certain expectations. They're refined people. They don't understand our situation. Refined people. I stood up from the table. What situation don't they understand, Marcus? That their daughter and son-in-law live in a house a black man pays for. That the countertops they eat off of were installed with a black man's money. That their grandson goes to private school on a black man's dime. That's not fair. What's not fair is asking a 76-year-old retired teacher to fund your entire life while treating him like an embarrassment. What's not fair is accepting $94,000 over 4 years and then telling that man he's not expected for Christmas because his presence makes your in-laws uncomfortable. Dad, you're twisting this. I'm done funding people who treat me like a burden, Marcus. You want the house, you pay for it. You want Isaiah in private school, you figure it out. You want granite countertops and new roofs and all the things Lauren posts about on Facebook like you earned them, then earn them. You're really going to do this? I hung up. My hands were shaking. Not from anger, from something that felt more like grief. The kind that comes when you finally see something clearly that you'd been refusing to look at for years. The second call came at 11:15. I'd been sitting in the dark staring at the folders on my laptop screen when the phone lit up. Lauren. I let it ring 3 times before answering. Let her think I might not pick up at all. George. Not Dad. Never Dad. Her voice was tight, controlled. I think there's been a misunderstanding. What part is confusing to you, Lauren? You're acting unstable. Marcus is genuinely worried about you. We both are. Canceling the mortgage payment over a simple scheduling conflict, that's not rational behavior. There it was. The word I'd been waiting for. Unstable. It's a tactic as old as time. When a black man finally says no, when he finally sets a boundary, suddenly he's unstable, irrational, possibly dangerous. It's the same word that gets used in police reports and hospital admissions and court documents, a word that erases agency and replaces it with pathology. I'm done funding people who treat me like a burden, Lauren. That's not unstable. That's called self-respect. We never asked for all that help. You offered. Every single time you offered. And now you're holding it over our heads like we forced you. You're right. I did offer. And you accepted. Month after month, year after year. $94,000 worth of accepting. And not once, not one single time did you say, George, this is too much, or George, we can handle it now, or George, thank you for everything, but we've got it from here. You just kept cashing the checks. Because you wanted to help. You said it made you feel useful. You said you were happy to do it. I was happy to do it when I thought I was helping my family. When I thought I was building something with you and Marcus. When I thought that maybe I'd earned a seat at the table. Turns out I was just funding a performance I wasn't allowed to watch. Silence on her end. I could hear her breathing. Fast. Shallow. This is really about race, isn't it? Her voice had changed. Gotten colder. You think because my parents are white, because I'm white, that we're racist. That's what this is really about. This is about respect. Or the lack of it. Your parents flew 2,400 miles to spend Christmas in a house I've been paying for. They're sleeping in beds I helped buy. They're eating off countertops I paid to install. And somehow their traditions, their expectations, their comfort is more important than the man who made all of it possible. My parents don't know about the money. We never told them. Exactly. You never told them because you were ashamed. We're not ashamed of needing help. Ashamed of who was helping you. A 76-year-old black man from Louisiana who taught algebra and drives a 20-year-old truck. That doesn't fit the story you want to tell about yourselves, does it? That's not fair. Tell your parents I won't be picking them up from the airport next time they visit. Tell them they'll need to rent a car, since apparently I'm not refined enough to be part of their traditions. George, you're being cruel. No, Lauren. Cruel was standing at that door tonight, looking past Marcus at the boots I bought for Isaiah, knowing I'd driven 42 miles through ice and darkness to be told I wasn't expected. Cruel was watching your father unpack his luggage in my living room. My living room, the one I've been paying for. This is just accounting. If you do this, if you really stop helping us, we'll lose everything. Then I guess you'll finally understand what it feels like to be me. Standing outside in the cold, watching through the window at a life you paid for but aren't allowed to be part of. I hung up before she could respond. My hands were steadier now. The grief from earlier had transformed into something else, something clearer, something that felt almost like purpose. I opened a new document on my laptop, started typing names, people who deserved to know the truth, people who'd been guests at that house, people who'd admired what Marcus and Lauren had supposedly built together, people who'd heard Lauren's stories about hard work and sacrifice and careful planning, the Mitchell's friends from Boston who visited last summer, the neighbors in Eagle River who'd been to their 4th of July barbecue, Lauren's book club members who'd met at the house monthly, Marcus's co-workers who'd attended Isaiah's birthday parties, the other parents from Heritage Academy who carpooled with them. The list grew. 23 names by the time I finished. 23 people who thought they knew Marcus and Lauren's story. 23 people who deserved to know the whole truth. I saved the document, labeled it distribution list. Then I went to bed. And for the first time in months, I slept soundly. I woke to 28 missed calls. The phone had been buzzing since 6 a.m., vibrating itself halfway across the nightstand. Most were unknown numbers. 3 were from Marcus, 2 from Lauren, 1 from a number with a 907 area code I didn't recognize. I made coffee first. Old habits. In the Army, you never face a situation without caffeine in your system. The voicemail icon showed 11 messages. I started with the unknown 907 number. Mr. Washington, this is Dana Roberts from the Anchorage Sentinel. I received a call this morning from Patricia Mitchell expressing concern about your well-being. She mentioned potential cognitive decline and what she described as elder financial abuse. She suggested you may be experiencing confusion regarding family financial arrangements. I'd like to speak with you directly to get your perspective on the situation. My number is 907-555-0147. Please call me back at your earliest convenience. I set the coffee cup down, listened to the message again. Patricia Mitchell had called a reporter. She wasn't just defending her daughter. She was going on offense, trying to control the narrative before I could. The story she was telling was predictable, confused elderly black man possibly suffering from dementia, making irrational accusations against his loving family who'd only ever tried to help him. It was smart. In a cruel, calculated way, it was very smart. I called Dana Roberts back. She answered on the second ring. Ms. Roberts, George Washington returning your call. Mr. Washington, thank you for calling back. I want to be upfront with you. I'm a reporter and I take allegations of elder abuse seriously. But I also believe in hearing all sides. Mrs. Mitchell was quite insistent that I look into your situation. She said you've been making threats, exhibiting paranoid behavior, and possibly suffering from memory issues. Ms. Roberts, I'm 76 years old. I taught high school mathematics for 32 years. I served in the Army for another 32 before that. I can recite every logarithm table I taught, remember every student's name from the last decade, and tell you exactly how much money I've transferred to my son in the last 4 years down to the dollar. Does that sound like cognitive decline to you? A pause. No, sir, it doesn't. I have documentation, bank statements, receipts, emails, text messages, recorded phone conversations. Everything that shows exactly what happened over the last 4 years. Would you be willing to meet in person? I'd like to show you what I have. Absolutely, when works for you. Today, your choice of location. There's a coffee shop on Northern Lights, Java Express. Can you be there at 2 p.m.? I'll be there at 1:45. I hung up and immediately started printing. Every bank statement, every receipt, every email, the Facebook screenshots, I organized them into 3 folders, red for financial documents, blue for communications, green for social media evidence. By 1:30, I was dressed in pressed khakis and a button-down shirt, clean-shaved. I wanted to look exactly like what I was, a clear-eyed, sane, methodical man who'd kept meticulous records because he'd been trained to document everything. I arrived at Java Express at 1:40, ordered black coffee, chose a table in the back corner with good light, arranged the 3 folders in front of me. Dana Roberts walked in at 1:58. Latina, maybe 40 sharp eyes that took in everything about me in 3 seconds. She had a recording device in one hand and a notepad in the other. Mr. Washington, Ms. Roberts, thank you for meeting me. I gestured to the chair across from me. Before we begin, I need to ask, did Patricia Mitchell tell you I was black? Dana sat down slowly. No, sir, she did not. Interesting. I slid the red folder across the table. Let's start with the money. The article went live at 6 a.m. on December 23rd. Dana had worked fast. The headline appeared on the Anchorage Sentinel's homepage above the fold. The Forgotten Contributor Won Veterans Quiet Christmas. She hadn't used names. She didn't need to. Anyone who knew Marcus and Lauren Washington in Eagle River would recognize the story within 3 paragraphs. A 76-year-old retired veteran from Palmer spent Christmas Eve alone this year after being turned away from his son's home, the same home he had helped finance with nearly $95,000 over 4 years. The reason given: his son's in-laws were visiting from out of state and he wasn't expected. The veteran, who served 32 years in the U.S. Army and another 32 years teaching mathematics in Anchorage public schools, provided extensive documentation to the Sentinel showing monthly mortgage payments, emergency home repairs, private school tuition, and renovation costs he had covered since 2020. I didn't want recognition, the veteran said. I wanted to be family. There's a difference. Meanwhile, social media posts from the home's residents painted a picture of self-made success, with captions celebrating hard work and careful financial planning. None mentioned family assistance. When asked why he finally stopped the payments, the veteran's answer was simple. You can't buy your way into someone's respect, and you shouldn't have to sacrifice your dignity for a seat at a table you paid for. The veteran's daughter-in-law's mother contacted the Sentinel before this interview, suggesting the veteran might be experiencing cognitive decline. However, the veteran presented clear, organized documentation spanning 4 years, including bank statements, receipts, email correspondence, and recorded phone conversations, all meticulously cataloged and cross-referenced. I'm a teacher, he explained. Documentation is what we do. The article continued for another 8 paragraphs, laying out the timeline, the amounts, the pattern. Dana had been surgical in her approach, every fact verified, every claim supported. Nothing sensational, just the truth methodically presented. By 8 a.m., the comments section had exploded. This breaks my heart. Thank you for your service, sir. I know exactly who this is. I've been to that house. The audacity. Lauren Washington still has posts up about their humble lifestyle and everything they worked so hard for. Girl, take them down. This is what happens when people confuse helping with owing. That man owed them nothing. They owed him everything. Those grandkids are going to read this someday and understand what kind of people raised them. The fact that the white in-laws tried to claim he had dementia instead of admitting their daughter and son-in-law are users says everything about who the real problem is here. By noon, the article had been shared 4,000 times. The Anchorage Daily News picked it up, then KTUU. By 2 p.m., it was the top story on Alaska public media. My phone rang constantly. I ignored most of the calls. But at 4:12 p.m., a Boston number appeared on the screen. I knew who it was before I answered. You need to retract that article immediately. Richard Mitchell's voice had the practiced authority of a man who'd spent his life being obeyed. No greeting, no introduction, just a command. I didn't write the article, Mr. Mitchell. A reporter did, based on facts I provided. You gave her false information. You're embarrassing my family. My daughter is receiving harassing messages because of your lies. Everything in that article is documented. Bank statements don't lie. Neither do screenshots or recorded phone calls. This is extortion. We could sue you for defamation. Defamation requires false statements. Everything I told that reporter is true. Provably true. I have 4 years of receipts that say so. You're playing a very dangerous game, old man. I stood up from my kitchen table, walked to the window. Outside, snow was starting to fall again, covering the driveway in fresh white. You're talking to a man who pulled 3 soldiers out of a burning convoy in Fallujah before the fuel tank exploded, Mr. Mitchell. You think I'm afraid of gossip in Anchorage. You think I'm afraid of lawyers I've faced dangerous. This isn't it. We've been nothing but kind to you. Kind. I let the word hang there. You flew 2,400 miles to spend Christmas in a house I've been paying for. You've eaten meals off countertops I paid to install. You've slept in beds I helped buy. Your grandson attends a school I pay for. And in 4 years, Mr. Mitchell, you never once said thank you. You never once acknowledged where the money was coming from. That's not kind. That's entitled. Marcus and Lauren work hard for what they have. Then they can work hard to keep it. without my help. If you do this, if you really cut them off, they'll lose everything. Then I guess they'll finally understand what it feels like to stand outside in the cold, looking through a window at a life they paid for but aren't allowed to be part of. His voice went cold. This isn't over. No, Richard. I'm just finally keeping score. I hung up. That evening I drove into Anchorage, not to confront anyone, just to see. I took the back roads through Eagle River past the developments and the shopping centers until I reached their street. The house stood dark except for one light in the upstairs window, no Christmas decorations visible, no cars in the driveway except Marcus's truck, and in the front yard tilted slightly against the wind a for sale sign. I sat in my truck for 5 minutes engine running, watching the snow accumulate on the sign's red lettering. Then I put the truck in reverse and drove back to Palmer. Some battles you win without ever raising your voice. 6 days passed in silence, not the comfortable kind. The kind that sits heavy in your chest and makes you check your phone even when you know no one's calling. On the 6th day, December 29th, I heard a car door slam at 6:08 p.m. I was in the kitchen washing dinner dishes by hand because the rhythm of it helps me think. Through the window over the sink, I saw Marcus getting out of his truck. He wasn't dressed for Alaska winter. Thin jacket, no gloves, no hat. His face was red from cold and something else. Shame, maybe, or exhaustion. He stood in my driveway for a full minute before walking to the door. I dried my hands and waited. Let him knock. When I opened the door, he looked 10 years older than he had a week ago. The lines around his eyes had deepened. His shoulders curved forward like he'd been carrying something too heavy for too long. "Can I come in?" I stepped aside without speaking. He entered the way people enter churches they haven't been to in years, careful, aware of every sound their footsteps make. "Place looks good," he said, scanning the living room like he was seeing it for the first time. And maybe he was. When was the last time he'd actually been here? 6 months, a year? It's what happens when you stop giving your paycheck to people who don't respect you. He flinched but didn't argue, just stood there, hands in his jacket pockets, looking at everything except me. "I got the notice of default from the bank, 3 months behind. They're filing for foreclosure in 14 days if we don't catch up." I nodded, didn't say I already knew. Aaron at the bank had called me as the co-signer. I told him to proceed with the foreclosure process. Marcus pulled a folded paper from his jacket. His hands were shaking. "I made a list, everything you paid for. I tried to calculate it all." He set it on the kitchen table, smoothed it flat with his palm like it was something precious. The paper was filled with his handwriting, numbers in columns, categories, dates. Down payment, $30,000. Mortgage payments, 48 months at $1,875. That's $90,000. Furnace, $4,200. Kitchen renovation, $12,000. School tuition, 3 years, $42,000. Emergency car repair, $3,400. Property taxes for 2 years, $8,800. The roof, $18,500. Medical bills, $6,200. He looked up at me. Total is $215,100. I walked over, looked at the paper. The math was right. "You're short about $20,000, but it's close enough." I don't even remember half of these. I just kept thinking it was temporary, that the next promotion would come through the next bonus, the next opportunity, and you kept saying yes, so I kept asking. That's honest. He sat down at the table without asking, put his head in his hands. Lauren left, took Isaiah to Boston. Her parents bought them tickets 2 days after the article came out. She said I need to handle this, that she'll come back when it's fixed. Fixed. I stayed standing. What does fixed look like to her? She wants me to talk to you, get you to start paying again, maybe co-sign on a new loan. She has a whole plan worked out. She thinks if we apologize properly, if we explain that it was all a misunderstanding, you'll help us out of this. And what do you think? Marcus looked up. His eyes were red. I think I chose them over you. I think I spent 4 years letting Lauren and her parents make me ashamed of where I came from, of who raised me. I think I stood at that door and told you that you weren't expected, and that's something I'm going to have to live with for the rest of my life. The kitchen clock ticked. Outside it had started snowing again, big flakes that stuck to the window and melted slowly. When Mom died, Marcus said quietly, she pulled me aside at the hospital. She was so weak she could barely talk. But she looked at me and said, "Don't let them erase him." I didn't understand what she meant then. I do now. I pulled out the chair across from him, sat down. Your mother saw things clearly. She tried to warn me. I didn't listen. She was right about Lauren, about the Mitchells, about all of it. He wiped his face with his sleeve. They're already talking about putting Isaiah in a private school in Boston, somewhere more appropriate. They keep talking about fresh starts and new opportunities and how Alaska was holding us back anyway. Alaska wasn't holding you back. I know that now. So what are you going to do? Marcus looked at me. Really looked at me. I don't know. Lauren calls 3 times a day asking if I've fixed it yet. Her father keeps sending me listings for jobs in Boston. They've already set up interviews. They have this whole life mapped out for us, for Isaiah. That's not an answer to my question. I know. He folded the paper, put it back in his pocket. That's why I'm here. I don't know what I'm doing. I just know that I'm tired of being who they want me to be, and I'm tired of being ashamed of who you are. I never asked you not to be ashamed. You shouldn't have had to ask. Marcus stared at his hands on the table. They were rougher than I remembered. Working hands now, not the soft hands of someone who'd spent his whole life behind a desk. I chose them over you. The words came out flat. Statement of fact, not excuse. Every single time there was a choice to make, I chose what was easier, what looked better, what made Lauren happy, what kept her parents from looking at me like I was disappointing them. I waited. Lauren keeps calling, 3-4 times a day, and every conversation is the same. You need to fix this. Talk to your father. Make him understand. That's what family does. That's his responsibility. Yesterday I finally said no. What did you say? I told her the man who paid our bills for 4 years without asking for anything back didn't owe us a damn thing. That maybe we owed him everything. That maybe the problem wasn't you canceling payments. The problem was us expecting them in the first place. How'd she take that? She cried, said I was choosing you over her, over Isaiah, that her parents were right about you from the beginning. I felt something tighten in my chest. Right about what? Marcus looked away. That you'd never really fit into their world, that you'd always be different, that we were making a mistake trying to build a bridge between 2 lives that were never going to connect. Different. There was that word again. The polite way people say what they really mean without having to own it. And you let her say that. I let her say a lot of things. I let her parents say worse. He looked back at me. At Thanksgiving 2 years ago, Richard told this story about his golf club, about how they'd finally started letting in the right kind of people. He said it while looking straight at me, like he was waiting to see if I'd understand the message. And I just sat there, smiled, changed the subject. Silence is agreement. Yeah, I know that now. Every time I didn't speak up, I was choosing their comfort over your dignity. I was telling them it was okay to think of you as less than, as different, as someone who could fund our life but couldn't be part of it. I stood up, walked to the mantel, picked up the photograph of Maria, her wedding day smile, the way her eyes could see through any performance, any pretense. Your mother told me something when you first brought Lauren home. We were washing dishes after dinner and Lauren was in the living room on her phone. Your mom looked at me and said, "That girl sees your color before she sees your character." I told her she was being too harsh, too suspicious, that times had changed. I set the photo down. Next to it was another frame, the one Isaiah had made 3 years ago in kindergarten, construction paper and crayons, a stick figure man in green, tall and broad, a smaller stick figure next to him in red holding the big one's hand. Above them in block letters spelled out with tongue sticking out concentration, "Me and Grandpa." Your mother was right. She saw what I didn't want to see, that Lauren was performing acceptance while calculating value. That to her parents, I was fine as a checkbook, just not as family. Marcus stood up, walked over, looked at Isaiah's drawing. I remember when he made that. Lauren wanted to throw it away because the letters were crooked, said it wasn't good enough to frame. I fought her on it, took it to your house myself. It's one of the only times I stood up to her about you. One time in 4 years. I know. So here's the question, Marcus. The only question that matters now. What are you going to choose next? He turned to face me. What do you mean? You came here tonight because you're in trouble. Because the bank is foreclosing and Lauren left and reality finally knocked on your door loud enough that you couldn't ignore it anymore. But you didn't come to apologize. Not really. You came to see if there was a way back to how things were. A way to fix this so Lauren will come home and life can go back to normal. That's not why I came. Isn't it? He opened his mouth, closed it, looked at the drawing again. I don't know why I came. I just know I couldn't sit in that empty house anymore. Couldn't answer one more call from Lauren asking if I'd fixed it yet. Couldn't look at one more email from Richard with job listings in Boston. Then let me make it simple for you. You can't have both. You can't have their approval and your integrity. You can't have their world and your truth. You chose them once, for 4 years straight. You chose their comfort, their expectations, their version of who you should be, and that choice cost you $94,000 of my money and all of my respect. His face crumpled. I know. The question isn't whether I'll help you out of this mess. I won't. The question is whether you're ready to help yourself. Whether you're ready to be the man your mother raised instead of the man the Mitchells want you to be. Whether you're ready to look your son in the eye and tell him the truth about who his grandfather is. I don't know how. Then figure it out, because that's what men do. We don't wait for someone to rescue us. We don't expect the people we've hurt to fix what we broke. We stand up, we face what we've done, and we do better. Marcus sat back down. He looked smaller somehow, like the conversation had physically diminished him. I stayed standing. This needed to be said from a position of strength, not comfort. You came here because you're in trouble, Marcus. Not because you wanted to apologize. Not because you suddenly realized what you'd done. You came because the walls are closing in and you're looking for a way out. That's not the same thing as being sorry. He opened his mouth to argue, closed it, nodded. So let me make something very clear. I will not be your way out. I will not co-sign another loan. I will not give you money to catch up on the mortgage. I will not bail you out of the situation. You made choices. Now you get to live with them. I understand. Do you? Because here's what happens next. You're going to sell that house, not because I'm forcing you, because you can't afford it and you never could. You took on a life you couldn't maintain, and you did it by spending my money and calling it yours. His jaw tightened, but he didn't argue. Then you're going to find a real job, not a startup, not a scheme, not some opportunity that's going to pay off big in 6 months. A job with a paycheck that shows up every 2 weeks. I don't care if it's beneath you. I don't care if Lauren's parents would be embarrassed. I care that it's honest work that pays honest money. What kind of job? That's for you to figure out. You have a degree, you have skills, use them, but do it in a way that doesn't involve other people's money or other people's faith in your promises. He flinched at that one. You're going to find an apartment you can actually afford, not in Eagle River, somewhere with reasonable rent. Anchorage has plenty of places where people live within their means. You're going to learn to do that. Lauren won't come back to an apartment. Then I guess you need to decide what matters more. Lauren's approval or your self-respect. Silence. Long enough that I could hear the refrigerator humming in the kitchen, the wind picking up outside. You're going to pay your own bills. All of them. On time. You're going to learn what it feels like to work for something and keep it because you earned it, not because someone gave it to you. And if I can't, then you fail, and you learn from failing. That's how men grow up, Marcus. They fall down. They get back up. They figure it out. What they don't do is call Daddy to write another check. He looked at the drawing of Isaiah again. What about my son? What about him? Isaiah, does he get punished for my mistakes? I walked back to the mantel, picked up the drawing, the crooked letters, the stick figures holding hands. The pure, unfiltered love of a 6-year-old who didn't know yet that families could be complicated. Isaiah is always welcome in this house. Anytime, for any reason. He can call me, he can visit, he can stay here for weeks at a time if he needs to. That boy has done nothing wrong. He doesn't get punished for your choices. Thank you. But you, I set the drawing down, you are earning your way back. Not buying. Earning. That means showing up, doing the work, being honest, keeping your word, treating people with respect. All the things you stopped doing somewhere along the way. Marcus stood up slowly. How long? How long what? How long until I've earned my way back? I don't know. That's not a question I can answer. It's not about time. It's about who you become. When you can stand in front of me and your son and not be ashamed of how you got where you are, when you can tell the truth about where you came from without flinching, when you can say no to people who ask you to be less than you are, then you'll know. He nodded, put his hands in his pockets. Can I ask you something? Yes. Why didn't you just cut me off years ago? Why did you keep paying month after month? Anyone else would have stopped. I thought about that, about Maria, about all those mornings writing checks and thinking this would be the month Marcus would call and say he didn't need help anymore, about all the times I convinced myself that love meant never saying no. Because I'm your father, and fathers want to believe in their sons, even when their sons stop believing in themselves, even when their sons choose people who don't deserve them. I kept hoping you'd remember who you were, who raised you, what you came from. I forgot. I know. I'm going to try to remember. Good. He walked to the door, stopped with his hand on the knob. I love you, Dad. I don't know if I've said that in a while, but I do. I know you do. That was never the question. What was the question? Whether you respected me. Love without respect is just sentiment. It doesn't mean anything if you won't stand up for it. Marcus nodded, opened the door. Cold air rushed in sharp and clean. I'll call you, he said. When I found a job, when I've moved, when things are settled. I'll be here. He left. I watched through the window as he got in his truck, sat there for a minute with the engine running, then pulled out of the driveway. 2 days later, an envelope appeared in my mailbox. No return address, no postage. Someone had hand-delivered it. Inside was a single piece of paper, construction paper, blue, the same blue as the drawing on my mantle. At the top, in Isaiah's careful block letters, to Grandpa. Below that, a drawing. A house. Small. Simple. Not the big house in Eagle River. Just a house with 4 windows and a door. In one window, a stick figure. Tall. In another window, a smaller stick figure. At the bottom, I miss you. I sat at my kitchen table holding that paper for a long time. Long enough for the sun to set. Long enough for the house to grow dark around me. Then I got up, found a frame, and hung it next to the other drawing. 2 pictures, 2 different times, the same love. The real letter came 4 days later. Not hand-delivered this time. Real postage. A Boston return address I didn't recognize. The envelope was thin, the kind that holds a single sheet of paper. When I opened it, I found notebook paper torn carefully from a spiral binder, the ragged edge still attached. The kind of paper elementary school kids use for assignments. At the top, drawn in blue crayon with the careful attention only an 8-year-old can manage, was a picture. 2 figures. One tall wearing what looked like a green jacket and pants, army colors, the other small standing next to the tall, one hand reaching up. Above them in block letters that tilted slightly to the right, each letter drawn separately with visible effort, me and Grandpa. Below the drawing, more block letters. These were neater, like he'd practiced them first on another paper. Dear Grandpa, I am in Boston now. Mom says we are staying with Grandma and Grandpa Mitchell for a while. They have a big house, but it doesn't have a backyard like ours did. I miss you. Thank you for my boots. I wore them to school before we left. People said I looked strong. One boy asked if my dad was in the army. I said no, but my grandpa was. He said that's cool. Grandma Mitchell says I should call Grandpa Mitchell. Grandpa, but I already have a grandpa. You. I told her that. She got quiet. Dad didn't come to Boston. Mom says he's working on things. I don't know what things. I asked if I could call him, and she said maybe later. Can I call you? Mom has your number. I looked in her phone. It's saved as George. Not Grandpa George, just George. That made me sad. I hope you had a good Christmas. I didn't get to give you your present. I made it at school. It's a bookmark with a picture of us. I still have it. I'll give it to you when I see you again. Merry Christmas. Grandpa. Isaiah P.S. I still have the picture of you in your uniform, the one you gave me for my birthday. I keep it in my backpack so I can look at it when I miss you. I sat at my kitchen table with that letter for longer than I'd sat with anything in recent memory. Longer than I'd sat with Maria's death certificate. Longer than I'd sat with my discharge papers from the Army. Longer than I'd sat with any medal or commendation or honor I'd received in 76 years. Because this was different. This wasn't recognition from strangers or official acknowledgement of service. This was love pure and uncomplicated from a child who didn't understand why families fell apart, but knew enough to hold on to what mattered. The handwriting was careful. He'd taken his time, probably written it over several days, adding thoughts as they came to him. The crayon drawing showed effort. The tall figure had details buttons on the jacket, boots on the feet, even an attempt at a face with eyes and a smile. This wasn't something Lauren had told him to write. This wasn't coached or managed. This was Isaiah alone in a strange house in Boston, missing his grandfather enough to tear a page from his notebook and put crayon to paper. I read it 3 times. Then I stood up, walked to my bedroom, and pulled out the box I kept under the bed. The one with Maria's letters to me during my deployments, the one with Marcus's report cards and school projects, the one with photographs from 3 decades of life. I added Isaiah's letter to the box, placed it on top where I could see it first every time I opened the lid. Then I went back to the kitchen and did what I should have done years ago. I called my grandson. I didn't call that day. Calling felt too immediate, too much like intruding on whatever fragile situation Isaiah was navigating in Boston. Instead, I sat down with my own paper and pen. The letter took me an hour to write. Not because I didn't know what to say, but because I wanted every word to matter. Dear Isaiah, thank you for your letter. It arrived on a cold Thursday afternoon and made my whole house feel warmer. I still have the photo of us on my mantle. The one where you wore my army hat sideways and told me you were going to be a general someday. You looked the part. Still do. Your boots sound like they're treating you well. Remember to clean them after it rains. Good boots last a lifetime if you take care of them, and always walk tall in them. That's what they're for. I'm glad you're telling people about your grandpa. You don't need to call anyone else grandpa if you don't want to. You already have one. Me. And I'm not going anywhere. You can call me anytime. My number is 907-555-0392. If your mom's phone won't let you call long distance, tell her to call me, and I'll call you right back. That way it doesn't cost anything. I'd love to see that bookmark you made. Maybe you can mail it to me or save it for when we see each other again. Either way, I know it's going to be perfect because you made it. Christmas was quiet this year, but good. I thought about you a lot. Wondered if you were wearing your boots. Wondered if you were being brave in a new place. Sounds like you are. Keep that picture in your backpack. Look at it whenever you need to remember where you come from, where you'll always belong. Merry Christmas, soldier. Grandpa George. I folded the letter, put it in an envelope, and wrote the Boston address from his letter on the front. Added extra postage to make sure it got there fast. Then I walked to the post office in Palmer and handed it to the clerk myself. Priority mail, I said. Needs to get to Boston as quick as possible. She weighed it stamped. It gave me a receipt. Important letter, she asked. The most important one I've ever written. 3 days later, another envelope arrived. This one was thicker. When I opened it, a photograph slid out onto the kitchen table. Isaiah stood next to a snowman in what looked like a backyard, not the Mitchell's backyard. Somewhere else, maybe a park. He was wearing the boots, laced all the way up, tied tight. His winter coat was zipped to his chin and he was saluting. Not a casual wave, a real salute. Hand-flat fingers together, touching his forehead at just the right angle. Someone had taught him how to do it properly. Behind him, barely visible in the photograph, was a brick wall. Someone had taped a piece of paper to it. I had to squint to read the words written in marker in Isaiah's careful block letters. Grandpa built this house. I sat down hard in the chair. The photograph shook in my hands. He'd made a sign, taken it to wherever this picture was taken, posed with it. Someone had taken the photo, probably Lauren or one of the Mitchells. They'd seen that sign, they'd read those words, and they'd taken the picture anyway. Or maybe they hadn't noticed. Maybe Isaiah had held the sign behind his back until the last second. Maybe he'd taped it to that wall when no one was looking and positioned himself just right so it would be in the frame. Either way, that boy was claiming me. In Boston, surrounded by people who wanted him to forget where he came from. He was holding on. I turned the photo over. On the back, in different handwriting, older, maybe a teenager's, took this at the playground. Isaiah made me promise to mail it. He said it was important. Your grandson loves you. My name is Keisha. I babysit for the Mitchells sometimes. He talks about you all the time. I read that line again. He talks about you all the time. I stood up, walked to the calendar on my fridge, found today's date, counted forward to December 25th next year, 358 days. That's when I made the decision. Every Christmas, Isaiah would get a gift, not mailed to Boston, not left with Marcus to deliver someday. Direct. Either I'd travel to wherever he was, or he'd come here, or we'd meet somewhere in the middle. But every single Christmas for the rest of my life, that boy would know his grandfather remembered him. He deserved to know where he came from. Not just in blood, but in backbone. Not just the DNA that made him, but the values that should shape him. The work ethic. The honesty. The pride that doesn't need approval from people who measure worth in square footage and zip codes. I took the photograph to my bedroom, placed it in a frame on my nightstand. The first thing I'd see every morning, the last thing I'd see every night. A boy in boots, standing tall, claiming his grandfather in a place that wanted him to forget. I wasn't going to let him forget, and I wasn't going to let them erase me. That night I went to the closet in my bedroom and pulled down a box from the top shelf. An old ammunition box from my time in Germany, olive drab with rust spots at the corners. I'd kept it for 40 years, moving it from base to base, from house to house, never quite knowing what to do with it, but unable to throw it away. Now I knew. I carried it to the kitchen table and opened it. Empty, except for a thin layer of dust and the ghost smell of gun oil. I wiped it clean with a rag, then went through the house gathering what Isaiah would need. First the compass, the one I'd carried through 2 deployments. Brass casing glass face cracked in one corner from the time I'd fallen during a night patrol in Kandahar. It still pointed north. Still worked. A man needs to know which direction he's heading, especially when the world tries to turn him around. Second, the letter. I'd kept it in my sock drawer for 23 years, folded in quarters, the edges soft from handling. Maria's handwriting careful and neat, addressed to Marcus on his first day of kindergarten. She'd written it the night before, planning to tuck it in his lunchbox. But that morning he'd been so nervous, crying and holding onto her leg, that she'd read it to him instead, right there in the kitchen. I'd found it later that day on the counter and kept it. "My brave boy," it said. "Today you start a new adventure. Remember, being brave doesn't mean you're not scared. It means you go anyway. Your daddy and I are so proud of you. You come from strong people. Don't ever forget that." Third, the photograph. Me in dress uniform, 1987, standing in front of the barracks in Fort Bragg. 28 years old, sergeant stripes fresh on my sleeve, back straight, eyes forward. The man I was before I became the grandfather Isaiah needed. The man who'd believed that working hard and doing right would be enough. I wanted Isaiah to see that version of me, to know I'd been young once, strong once, sure of myself in a way that only comes before life teaches you how complicated everything really is. Fourth, Isaiah's drawing. The original one from 3 years ago. Me and Grandpa in crooked letters. I made a color copy, first kept the copy in the frame on my mantle. The original would go in the box. When Isaiah opened this someday, he'd see his own handwriting, his own creation, proof that he'd loved me before the world got complicated. Last, my dog tags. The metal had dulled over the years, but you could still read the stamped letters. Washington George. Service number. Blood type. Religion. Protestant. They'd been around my neck for 32 years. They'd survived training exercises, deployments, close calls, and one helicopter crash in bad weather that should have killed me but didn't. They'd come home with me. Now they'd go forward with Isaiah. I arranged everything carefully in the ammunition box. The compass in the center, the letter folded beneath it, the photograph tucked along one side, the drawing along the other, the dog tags draped over everything like a benediction. This wasn't a gift, not in the traditional sense. This was a time capsule of truth, evidence of who we were, who we'd been, where Isaiah came from before people started trying to reshape him into something more acceptable, more refined, more appropriate for their world. I'd give it to him when he was older, not 8, maybe 16, maybe 18, old enough to understand what it meant, old enough to know that identity isn't something you choose based on who makes you comfortable. It's something you inherit, something you carry, something you honor. Boys like Isaiah deserve the full map, not just the parts that looked good on college applications, not just the stories that made dinner conversation easy, the whole thing. The grandfather who paid for a house he wasn't allowed to enter, the grandmother who saw through lies when everyone else wanted to believe them, the father who got lost but might still find his way back. All of it, the hard parts and the proud parts and the parts that don't fit neat categories. I closed the ammunition box, wrote on a piece of masking tape, "For Isaiah. Open when you're ready to know who you are." Put it back on the shelf. right where I could see it, right where it would wait. 3 days passed without a word from Marcus. No calls, no texts, no emails. Just silence, the kind that settles into your bones and makes you wonder if you did the right thing. On the 4th day, the letter arrived. Official. Certified mail. I had to sign for it. The envelope was from First National Bank. I knew what it was before I opened it. Notice of default. The words sat at the top of the page in bold letters like a verdict. Account holders: Marcus Washington, Lauren Mitchell Washington, co-signer George Washington. Property address 4782 Snowbird Lane, Eagle River, Alaska. Amount in default $11,250. Payments missed. 3 consecutive monthly payments. Action required: full payment of outstanding balance plus late fees within 14 days to avoid foreclosure proceedings. I read it twice. Once standing in my driveway still holding the empty envelope. Once again at my kitchen table with my reading glasses on, making sure I understood every word. $11,250. 3 months of mortgage payments at $1,875 each plus late fees and penalties. 14 days to cure the default or the bank would begin foreclosure. I set the letter down on the table, stood up, poured myself a second cup of coffee even though I'd already had my morning cup. This one wasn't about caffeine, it was about having something to do with my hands while I let the information settle. Marcus hadn't called to tell me, hadn't warned me this was coming. He'd known for weeks, probably. The bank doesn't send default notices after one missed payment. They send warnings first. Reminders. Courtesy calls. By the time you get a notice of default, you've ignored a dozen other attempts to fix the problem. He'd been hoping I'd change my mind, that I'd see the bank statement, panic, and write a check. That family obligation or guilt or some last remaining shred of whatever had kept me paying for 4 years would kick in and save him one more time. I walked to the window. Outside, the morning sun was hitting the snow at an angle that made everything look clean and new. The kind of light that makes you believe in fresh starts. The air in my house felt different, lighter. Like something that had been pressing down on my chest for years had finally lifted. I could breathe deeper, stand straighter. This wasn't my debt. It had never been my debt. I'd made it mine by choice, month after month, check after check. But standing there in my kitchen holding that notice of default, I realized something I should have known all along. The debt wasn't the money. The debt was the self-respect I'd traded away every time I said yes when I should have said no. Every time I funded a life that had no room for me in it. Every time I chose being useful over being valued. That debt, I'd just finished paying it. I folded the notice, put it back in the envelope, and filed it in the cabinet under household. Then I sat down and finished my coffee in silence. 7 days after the notice of default arrived, I heard a car pull into my driveway at 6:08 in the evening. I was at the sink, washing dinner dishes, when headlights swept across the kitchen window. I dried my hands and walked to the front door. Through the window, I could see someone getting out of a rental car. Not Marcus's truck. A sedan with an Enterprise sticker on the bumper. Lauren. She stood by the car for a moment, looking at my house like she was trying to decide if this was really where she wanted to be. No big purse, no designer coat, just a plain black jacket and jeans. Her hair was pulled back in a ponytail, no styling, no makeup that I could see from this distance. Just Lauren. Empty-handed, empty-eyed. I opened the door before she reached it. She stopped halfway up the walkway, surprised. George. My name came out uncertain, like she wasn't sure what to call me anymore. Not Dad. Never Dad. But George felt wrong now too in this context. I didn't say anything, just stood there holding the door. Can I come in? I stepped aside. Didn't answer with words. The gesture was answer enough. She walked past me into the house and I caught the absence of her usual perfume, that expensive stuff that always announced her arrival 5 minutes before she appeared. Tonight she just smelled like airport and rental car and winter air. I closed the door and gestured toward the kitchen. Coffee. No, thank you. She stood in the middle of my living room like she didn't know what to do with her body. Her eyes moved around the space. The old furniture, the worn carpet, the framed drawings on the mantel. She walked over to the mantel, looked at Isaiah's pictures. The old one from 3 years ago. The new one with the salute. He mailed you these? Yes. I didn't know he was doing that. I figured. She turned to face me. Marcus told me what you said about earning his way back. About the house. About all of it. I waited. He's applied for 6 jobs in the last week. Real jobs. Not the kind he usually goes for. Construction supervisor. Project manager at a supply company. One at a logistics firm. He had an interview yesterday. Good. He told Lauren's parents no. They wanted to fly him to Boston. Set him up with interviews at Richard's bank. Marcus said he wasn't interested. Also good. She looked down at her hands. I came back to get some things from the house. Clothes, documents, some of Isaiah's toys he's been asking for. The realtor says we should have it empty before the bank takes it. Smart. Marcus wasn't there. He's staying at a motel in Anchorage, one of those extended stay places. He said he couldn't be in that house alone, that it felt like a museum of mistakes. I almost smiled at that. Almost. Lauren walked to the couch and sat down without asking, not like she owned the place, like someone who'd run out of energy to stand. I owe you an apology. You don't owe me anything, Lauren. That's kind of the point. No, I do. I owe you honesty, at least. She looked up at me. My parents raised me to believe that there was a right kind of people and a wrong kind. They never said it that way. They used other words, refined, appropriate, suitable. But what they meant was white, wealthy, connected. And I believed them because it was easier than questioning them. I sat down in the chair across from her. When I met Marcus, I thought I was being open-minded, dating a black man, how progressive of me, how modern. But I never actually examined what I believed. I just found ways to make Marcus fit into my parents' world, make him acceptable, make him less than what he was so they could be comfortable with what he wasn't. And me, you were the part that didn't fit, the part I couldn't explain away or repackage. A black man from Louisiana who drove an old truck and taught high school. You didn't fit the narrative I was selling, so I tried to make you invisible. You succeeded. I know, her voice cracked, and I'm sorry. Not because everything fell apart, not because we're losing the house, but because I took a good man's generosity and turned it into something shameful, because I let my son think his grandfather wasn't good enough, because I taught him without meaning to that love has conditions, that family has requirements, that some people matter and some people don't. Why are you telling me this now? Because Isaiah asked me a question yesterday. He asked me why he couldn't call you, why we left Alaska so fast, why Grandpa Mitchell keeps saying things about you that don't sound nice. What did you tell him? I told him the truth, that I made mistakes, that I hurt someone who didn't deserve it, that his Grandpa George is a good man who loved us even when we didn't deserve it. How'd he take that? He said he already knew. We moved to the kitchen table. I poured water into 2 glasses without asking if she wanted any, set one in front of her, sat down across from her. Lauren stared at the glass for a long time before speaking. I wanted to look you in the eye when I said this. I'm sorry. I didn't respond, just waited. I let pride and appearances override basic human decency. I made decisions based on what would look good, what would be comfortable for my parents, what would fit the life I thought I was supposed to have. And in doing that, I hurt you. Repeatedly. Deliberately. Not always consciously, but that doesn't make it better. She wrapped both hands around the glass but didn't drink. I confused your silence for agreement. Every time you didn't push back, every time you said yes when we asked for money, every time you showed up, even when we made it clear you weren't really wanted, I took that as permission. I told myself you were fine with it, that if you had a problem, you'd say something, that your continued help meant you understood. But silence is an agreement. Silence is just what happens when someone loves you more than they love themselves. You're right about that. I taught Marcus to be ashamed of you, not with words, with actions, with the way I talked about you to my friends, with the way I introduced you, with the way I scheduled our lives to minimize your presence. Isaiah learned from watching me that his grandfather was someone to be managed, not celebrated. I took a drink of water, let her keep going. My parents made it worse, but I can't blame them entirely. They're who they are. I'm the one who chose to marry into a black family and then spent 4 years trying to pretend I hadn't. I'm the one who took your money and posted on Facebook about our hard work. I'm the one who stood at that door on Christmas Eve and let Marcus tell you that you weren't expected. Do you hate me? I asked. She looked up startled. What? It's a simple question. Do you hate me? Resent me? Wish I'd just disappear so your life could be simpler? No, God no, I don't hate you. Then what is it? Because hate I could understand. Hate makes sense. But what you did wasn't hate, it was something else. She took a shaky breath. I was embarrassed, not by you, by what you represented. You were evidence that Marcus came from somewhere, that he had a history, that he wasn't the self-made man I wanted to present to my parents and their friends. You were complicated, you required explanation, and I wanted everything to be simple. So you erased me. Yes. And now you're apologizing because you got caught or because you're actually sorry. The question hung between us. I could see her working through it, trying to figure out the honest answer. Both, she said finally. I'm sorry because everything fell apart and I can see now what I couldn't see before. But I'm also sorry because Isaiah made me look at what I'd done, really look at it. And I didn't like what I saw. I nodded slowly. That's honest at least. Do you hate me? No, but I don't trust you. And I don't welcome you. You've apologized and I heard you. But apologies don't rebuild what's been torn down. They don't undo 4 years of being treated like a checkbook with legs. They don't erase standing in the cold looking at boots I bought for my grandson while being told I'm not expected. I understand. I don't think you do, not yet, but maybe someday. Lauren stood up. I deserve that. Yes, you do. She walked toward the door, but stopped with her hand on the back of a kitchen chair, turned back to face me. I was hoping we could talk about Isaiah. There it was, the real reason for the visit. Not the apology, not the confession. Those were just preamble to get to this. What about him? He's been asking to call you, every day, multiple times a day. My parents think it's unhealthy, that he's fixating, that we should help him adjust to his new life instead of keeping him connected to Alaska. Isaiah is welcome to call me anytime he wants. You have my number. I know, but I was thinking maybe we could coordinate, keep things consistent for him, have a schedule, maybe once a week on Sundays, something structured. I stood up. You mean you want to control when and how I talk to my grandson? That's not what I'm saying. Yes, it is. You want to manage my relationship with Isaiah the same way you managed everything else. Keep it contained. Keep it convenient. Keep it from interfering with whatever new life you're building in Boston. Her jaw tightened. I'm trying to do what's best for my son. Then let him talk to his grandfather, without conditions, without schedules, without your parents listening in and deciding what's appropriate. That boy wrote me a letter, drew me pictures, made a sign that said I built a house. He's holding on to me, Lauren. The least you can do is let him. My parents think, I don't care what your parents think, they've thought enough already. They can think whatever they want about me. But Isaiah, he's 8 years old. He didn't do anything wrong. He doesn't get managed or controlled or scheduled into appropriate time slots. Lauren's shoulders dropped. You're right. I know I am. I'm moving back to Boston. For good. Marcus knows. We're filing for separation, maybe divorce. I don't know yet, but either way, I'm taking Isaiah with me, starting over, resetting. Isaiah needs his father. Marcus can visit when he gets settled, when he has a job, a place, when things are stable. You're taking his son because he finally stood up to you. I'm taking my son because this marriage was a mistake from the beginning. We both knew it. We just didn't want to admit it. She walked to the door, put her hand on the knob, turned back one more time. One day you'll see I was trying my best, that I was doing what I thought was right. I hope that comforts you. She opened the door. Cold air rushed in. She stepped out onto the porch, then stopped. For what it's worth, Isaiah is lucky to have you. He always was. You just didn't notice. She walked to her car. No dramatic exit, no slammed door, no lingering perfume. Just absence. The honest kind. The kind that leaves a space empty, but clean. I watched her drive away, then closed the door and went back to my dishes. December 25th arrived cold and quiet. I woke before dawn the way I had for 50 years of military and teaching life. No alarm needed. My body knew. The house was dark. Silent. The kind of silence that's different from night silence. This was the silence of a holiday morning, with no children running down hallways, no voices calling out about what Santa brought, no smell of cinnamon rolls baking because someone got up early to make traditions happen. Just me. Alone. For the first time in 29 years. I got out of bed, put on my robe, and walked to the living room. The wood stove had gone cold overnight. I knelt down, opened the door, arranged kindling and newspaper the way my father taught me 60 years ago, struck a match. Watched the flame catch and spread. In the kitchen I made coffee. Not the fancy kind, just the brand I'd been buying since 1987 because it was cheap and reliable and tasted like morning should taste. Black. No sugar. At 6:45 with coffee in hand, I opened the front door and stepped onto the porch. The cold hit me immediately sharp and clean. 3 or 4 inches of fresh snow had fallen overnight, covering the driveway and the yard and the road beyond. No tire tracks, no footprints. Just white, clean, untouched. The sun wasn't up yet, but the sky had started to lighten at the edges. That blue-gray color that comes before dawn. The world holding its breath between dark and light. I thought about Maria. This would have been our 47th Christmas together if cancer hadn't taken her 6 years ago. She used to get up early on Christmas morning before anyone else. She'd make a pot of coffee, turn on the tree lights, and sit in the living room in the dark, just looking at the colors. Finding peace before the chaos of the day, and she always lit a candle, put it in the window facing the street. I'd asked her once why she did that. So if anyone's lost, she'd said, they know there's a home here. They know someone left a light on for them. I went back inside, found the candle we'd always used. White, simple. In a glass holder Maria had bought at a church sale 20 years ago. I carried it to the front window, the one that faces the road, set it on the sill, lit it with the same matches I'd used for the wood stove. The flame wavered, then steadied. I stood there watching it for a while, thinking about all the Christmases that had come before this one. The ones with Marcus when he was small, believing in magic. The ones after the divorce when it was just me and Maria pretending we weren't sad. The ones after Marcus got married when we drove to Eagle River and tried to fit into a celebration that never quite felt like ours. And now this one. Alone. With just a candle and a memory and the kind of peace that comes from finally telling the truth. The light stayed steady. I went back to the kitchen to wait for whatever the day would bring. At 8:12 in the morning I heard an engine. Not the familiar rumble of Marcus's truck. Something smaller, quieter. I walked to the window. A sedan was pulling into my driveway. Silver. Enterprise rental sticker on the bumper. It stopped, engine idling, exhaust visible in the cold air. The driver's door opened. Marcus got out, looked at the house, saw me in the window, raised his hand in a small wave. Then the back door opened. Isaiah climbed out, moving carefully like someone who'd been sitting in a car too long. He was wearing a coat that looked too big for him, sleeves hanging past his hands, a knit cap pulled down over his ears, and in his arms, wrapped in newspaper, he was carrying something. Marcus said something to him. Isaiah nodded. Marcus got back in the car. The boy stood there in my driveway watching his father drive away. He didn't look scared, didn't look lost, just stood there holding whatever was in his arms, waiting until the car disappeared around the corner. Then he turned and walked toward my house. I opened the door before he reached it, stepped out onto the porch in my slippers and robe, not caring about the cold. Isaiah. Hi, Grandpa. We looked at each other, 8 years old and 76 years old. Two people who'd been kept apart by other people's choices, finally in the same place at the same time, with no one standing between us. You're early, I said. Sun's barely up. Dad dropped me at a diner near the highway, said they were going to church. He asked if I wanted to go. I said I'd be fine, that I had somewhere to be. Church, huh? I don't think he was really going to church. I think he just didn't know what else to say. Smart kid. How'd you get here from the diner? I called a taxi, used the money from my birthday. Grandma Mitchell gave me $40. I've been saving it. You took a taxi by yourself. The lady driver was nice. She asked where I was going on Christmas morning. I said my grandpa's house. She said that was a good place to be. I came down the steps, knelt on the bottom one so we were eye level. Your mom know you're here. She's in Boston. Dad said she didn't need to know everything right now, that some things were just between us. And your dad's okay with this. He's the one who gave me your address, wrote it on a piece of paper, told me if I ever needed you, this is where you'd be. I looked at the newspaper-wrapped bundle in his arms. What you got there? Present? I made it. Well, me and Dad made it together, last week. He helped with the hard parts. You didn't have to bring me anything. I wanted to. He held it out to me. Can I come in? It's cold. I stood up. You hungry? Always. We went inside. The house was warm now, the wood stove doing its job. Isaiah stopped just inside the door, taking everything in. The old furniture, the worn carpet, the framed drawings on the mantel. He walked straight to the mantel, stood in front of his pictures, the one from 3 years ago, the one with the salute. You kept them. Of course I kept them. Mom said you probably threw them away, that you were mad at us. I'm not mad at you. I was never mad at you. He turned around. Can I give you your present now? Let me make you breakfast first, then presents. Okay. He set the bundle carefully on the coffee table. Can I have pancakes? You can have whatever I know how to make, which is pancakes, eggs, or toast. Pancakes. In the kitchen, he sat at the table while I mixed batter from a box. Maria used to make them from scratch, but I'd never mastered that. Box pancakes were good enough. Grandpa, yeah, why didn't you come to Boston? I poured batter onto the griddle, watched it spread and bubble. Because I wasn't invited, and I'm tired of showing up places where I'm not wanted. I wanted you there. I know you did, soldier, but sometimes what kids want and what adults decide are two different things. That's stupid. Yeah, it is. He was quiet for a minute. Then, are you and Dad going to be okay? I don't know yet. That's up to him. And me, are you and me going to be okay? I flipped the pancakes, looked at my grandson, 8 years old, sitting in my kitchen on Christmas morning, asking questions that shouldn't be his to ask. You and me, we're already okay. We've always been okay. He smiled, small at first, then bigger. Good. We ate at the kitchen table. 2 plates, 2 forks, 2 glasses of orange juice. The kind of simple breakfast that feels important because of who you're sharing it with, not what you're eating. Isaiah attacked his pancakes like he hadn't eaten in days. Maybe he hadn't, not really. Boston food with people watching your manners isn't the same as food you can just eat. These are good, he said, mouth full. Your grandma's recipe. Well, the box's recipe, but she's the one who taught me to make them. I wish I remembered her better. She died when you were 3, but she knew you. She loved you. She used to hold you and tell you stories about when your dad was little. He nodded, chewing thoughtfully. When his plate was empty, he pushed back from the table and retrieved the newspaper-wrapped bundle from the living room. Okay, now present time. He set it on the table between us. Started unwrapping it, carefully peeling back layers of newspaper like he was worried about breaking something. Inside was a shadow box. Wooden frame glass front deep enough to hold objects. Handmade. I could see where the corners had been glued, where someone had sanded the edges smooth. Dad helped me build the frame, but I picked what went inside. Behind the glass, arranged carefully, my dog tags. The ones I'd kept in my sock drawer for years. Isaiah must have found them at the house before everything fell apart. Maria's rosary. The blue beads she'd carried every Sunday. I thought Marcus had those. A photograph. Marcus at maybe 4 years old, sitting in a red wagon in our old backyard. His front teeth missing. His smile enormous. And at the bottom, a piece of paper with writing I recognized. Maria's handwriting. Careful cursive on lined notebook paper. I leaned closer to read it through the glass. For the day he remembers who he is. Keep these safe. He'll need them when he's ready. Love, Maria. My throat closed up. I had to look away from the shadow box, away from Isaiah, toward the window where morning light was starting to fill the kitchen. Dad found it in a closet, in a box with Grandma's things. The note was with your dog tags and the rosary. He said Grandma must have made it for him, for when he was older, for when he needed to remember. I looked back at the shadow box. at my dog tags catching the light, at Maria's handwriting from beyond the grave still trying to guide her son home. He said I should give it to you, that maybe you needed to remember too, that maybe we all needed to remember where we came from. Your dad said that. Yeah, he cried when we were making the frame. I asked him why. He said because he forgot something important and he was trying to remember it. I reached across the table and put my hand on Isaiah's shoulder. Thank you, soldier. This is the best present anyone's ever given me. Really, really. Isaiah helped me clear the dishes, rinsed them without being asked, put them in the drying rack the way someone had taught him to do it right. When we were done, we sat in the living room. He looked at the pictures on the mantel again, then at me. Grandma used to tell me stories about you, before she got sick, about the medals you got, the missions, but also about other stuff, like Christmases when Dad was little, how you made pancakes every Saturday, how you used to carry me on your shoulders when I got tired. Your grandma loved telling stories. I think I remember some of it, not a lot, but some. Like one time it was snowing and we were at a park. I fell asleep and you carried me all the way to the truck. I was 4, maybe. You were 4, and you were heavy, but I never minded. He smiled at that, then his face got serious. Grandpa, I don't want to forget. I don't want to forget you or Grandma or any of it. Mom keeps saying we're making a fresh start, that Boston is better, that we're going to have a better life there, but I don't want to forget this life. You won't forget. How do you know? Because the things that matter, the things that are real, those don't go away just because someone tells you to forget them. They stay in here. I tapped my chest. And you get to decide what you keep. He nodded slowly, then took a breath like he was working up courage. Can I stay here with you? Just until school starts again. Mom's in Boston. Dad's in that motel. Nobody's really paying attention right now. I could stay here and it would be okay. I looked at this boy, 8 years old, asking to stay with his grandfather because the adults in his life had created chaos he didn't understand and didn't deserve. Of course you can stay. This is your home too. It always has been. Mom says your house is small, that it's not like their place. It is small and it's not like their place. Good. He looked around the living room, at the old furniture and the worn carpet and the simple decorations. This is better, it's real. Yeah, it is. Can we build a snowman later? We can do whatever you want. And can I call Dad? Tell him I'm okay? Absolutely. He relaxed into the couch, really relaxed, like he'd been holding tension in his body for weeks and finally let it go. Merry Christmas, Grandpa. Merry Christmas, soldier. That afternoon after Isaiah called Marcus to let him know he was safe, we bundled up and went outside. The snow had stopped falling, but everything was covered, clean, untouched except for the tracks we made walking to the trail behind my property. No presents, no music, no performance, just boots crunching on snow and breath visible in cold air and a boy learning that being together doesn't require production value. We walked for an hour. Isaiah talked about school in Boston, about kids who asked where Alaska was, about how different everything felt. I listened, didn't try to fix it, just let him say what he needed to say. When we got back, he saw the woodpile by the shed. Can I help? I showed him how to split kindling, how to stack it so air could flow through. He worked without complaining, his movements careful and deliberate. That evening we made grilled cheese sandwiches and tomato soup from a can. Sat by the fire. Isaiah fought sleep for a while, then gave up and curled into the corner of the couch, head on a pillow, breathing steady. I watched him for a few minutes. 8 years old, safe, home. Then I went to the filing cabinet, pulled out the folders, all the evidence I'd collected, all the proof of what had happened, the bank statements, the Facebook screenshots, the recordings, everything I'd been carrying for months. I took them to the wood stove, opened the door, fed the papers in one at a time, watched them catch and curl and turn to ash. Not because I was forgiving Marcus, not because I was forgetting what happened, but because I didn't need to carry it anymore. The truth was already out there, the consequences were already in motion, and holding on to evidence of pain doesn't heal anything, it just keeps the wound fresh. Isaiah shifted in his sleep, made a small sound. His arm fell off the edge of the couch. I walked over quietly. found the blanket Maria used to keep folded over the back of the chair, covered him with it, tucked it around his shoulders the way you do with children who need to know someone's watching over them. He settled deeper into sleep, face peaceful, safe. I crouched down next to the couch, put my hand on his head for just a moment, whispered words he wouldn't hear but needed to be said anyway. "Welcome home, soldier." The candle still burned in the window. I'd forgotten about it. Now I was glad I'd left it there, not for Marcus, not for Lauren, not for anyone who'd already found their way and chosen to walk away from it. For Isaiah, for this generation, the one that deserved the truth, the one that deserved to know where they came from and who loved them and what family really meant when you stripped away all the performance and pretense and conditions. The light stayed steady, patient, waiting for whoever else might need to find their way home. I sat in the chair across from the couch watching Isaiah sleep. The fire crackled, the candle burned steady in the window, and for the first time in months, maybe years, I felt something close to peace. Here's what I learned through all of this. Respect isn't inherited. It's earned daily through actions, not words. You can't demand it. You can't buy it. You can only live in a way that makes it the natural response. I served 32 years in the Army, faced combat, led men through situations where one wrong decision meant someone didn't come home. But the hardest battle I ever fought was in Marcus's living room, when I finally learned to say no to people who confused my generosity with weakness. They saw my silence as compliance, my financial support as obligation, my brown skin as something to be managed, hidden, kept separate from their refined world. But you can't buy your way into someone's respect, and you can't sacrifice your dignity for the comfort of people who don't value you. Marcus chose looking good over being good. He chose appearances over authenticity. And for years I enabled that choice by continuing to pay for a seat at a table where I was never truly welcome. The hardest thing I did wasn't canceling those mortgage payments. It was accepting that my son had to lose everything before he could see what mattered. But Isaiah, he never forgot. Because children see truth before they learn to see color, status, or social hierarchy. They love without calculation. This taught me that justice isn't always loud. Sometimes it's a quiet walk home, lighting a candle in the window and waiting for the right soul to find their way back. Not everyone will return, but the ones who do, they'll know the difference between a house you bought and a home you built. March came to Alaska the way it always does. Cold, refusing to let go. Snow still on the ground but tired looking. Dirty, ready to be done. I drove into Anchorage on a Thursday morning, had some errands to run, hardware store, post office, and one stop I'd been putting off. Deshawn's Lumber and Supply sat off Muldoon Road, a sprawling yard with stacks of wood under corrugated metal roofs and a warehouse that had seen better decades. I'd known Deshawn for 15 years. We'd served together. Different units, but we'd crossed paths at Fort Richardson and stayed in touch. When Marcus had asked me 3 months ago if I knew anyone hiring, I'd made one call. Deshawn had said yes without hesitation. Not because of me. Because he needed workers, and Marcus needed work. And sometimes the equation is that simple. I parked near the main building and walked toward the yard. March wind cut through my jacket. I pulled my collar up and kept walking. The yard was busy, 2 guys loading a flatbed, another running a forklift, and there near the back stacks, Marcus. He was wearing work boots, Carhartt pants, a thermal shirt under a company vest, gloves, hard hat. He was lifting 2x4s from a pallet, checking each one, stacking the good ones to his left, the warped ones to his right. His movements were steady, deliberate, no wasted motion. The way you work when you've done the same task enough times that your body knows it without your brain having to supervise. I stood watching for a minute. He didn't see me. He was focused on the work. Deshawn appeared from the warehouse, clipboard in hand, saw me, walked over. "George, didn't know you were coming by. Had errands, thought I'd stop in." He nodded toward Marcus. "Your boy's doing good." "Yeah. He's slow, but he's steady. Shows up at 6 every morning. Doesn't complain, doesn't cut corners, asks questions when he doesn't know something instead of pretending he does." Deshawn glanced at his clipboard. "I can teach speed, can't teach showing up, can't teach honest work." "How's he with the other guys?" "Quiet at first. They gave him some grief, called him the college boy, asked if he needed his manicure breaks." Deshawn smiled. "He took it, didn't get defensive, just kept working. After about 2 weeks they stopped, Now he's just another guy on the crew. Marcus finished with one pallet, marked something on a sheet attached to it, moved to the next one. That's when he saw me. He stopped, straightened, wiped his forehead with his sleeve. We looked at each other across 50 feet of lumberyard. He raised his hand. Small wave. Not performance. Just acknowledgement. I raised mine back. He returned to work. Deshaun watched the exchange. "You two talking yet?" "Some. He calls every Sunday, tells me about his week, asks about Isaiah. We keep it simple. That's something. It's a start." Deshaun checked his watch. "Breaks in 20 minutes. You staying?" "No. Just wanted to see how he was doing." "He's doing the work. That's all any man can ask." I nodded. Looked at Marcus one more time. He was bent over the lumber-focused present. No shame in his posture, no pretense. Just a man doing a job. I walked back to my truck. As I was pulling out, I saw Marcus straighten again. This time, he was looking right at my truck. He lifted his hand once more, held it there until I drove past. In my rearview mirror, I watched him return to his work. Lifting, sorting, building something honest with his hands. It wasn't redemption. Not yet. But it was direction. And sometimes that's all you can ask for. Someone pointing themselves toward better and taking the first steps even when the path is long and the work is hard and no one's applauding. I drove home thinking about Maria, about what she'd said all those years ago, that Marcus would need to lose everything before he could find what mattered. She'd been right about that too. 2 weeks after I visited the lumberyard, Marcus called on a Tuesday evening instead of his usual Sunday. "Dad, I wanted to tell you something. I signed a lease today." "Yeah, where?" "South Anchorage, near Diamond, 1 bedroom, $650 a month." I did the math in my head. 650 times 12, 7,800 a year. On $18 an hour, that was manageable if he was careful. "You see it yet?" "Moved in this afternoon. It's small, really small. Kitchen's barely big enough for one person. Bedroom fits a bed and not much else. But it's clean, and it's mine. Well, mine and the landlord's. But I'm the one paying for it." "That's good." "It's weird, Dad. I've never done this before. Never paid my own rent with my own money that I actually earned. The house was always you or Lauren's parents or some combination. Even the motel was week to week, and I kept thinking it was temporary. But this is different. I signed a year lease, gave first month, last month, and deposit. Watched my bank account drop to almost nothing. And instead of panicking, I felt relieved. Why relieved? Because it's real. Because if I can't pay it next month, that's on me. Not you, not anyone else, just me. And I know I can pay it because I know exactly how many hours I need to work, and I know I'm going to show up for those hours. I heard something in the background. Voices. A child's voice. "Is that Isaiah?" "Yeah, he flew back last week. Spring break. He's staying with me for 10 days. Lauren wasn't happy about it, but I told her this is what the custody arrangement says, and I'm following it. He's sleeping on an air mattress in the living room. We got it at Walmart. $23. He picked it out himself. How's that going?" "It's good. Different. We went grocery shopping yesterday, made a list, stuck to a budget. Isaiah helped me compare prices. We made spaghetti last night. From scratch. Well, jar sauce and boxed pasta, but we made it together. He set the table. We ate and talked about his school in Boston. Then we washed the dishes together." Marcus paused. I could hear him taking a breath. "Dad, I've never done that before. Cooked a meal in a place I'm paying for and sat down with my son and just talked. Lauren always cooked, or we ordered out, or we ate at her parents' place. I never realized how different it feels when you're the one who bought the groceries and made the food and know exactly what it cost. It's called being responsible. I know, and I'm 33 years old and just learning it. Better late than not at all." Isaiah asked me something last night. He said, "Dad, are we poor now?" I didn't know how to answer at first. Then I told him we're not poor. We just don't have extra, that there's a difference. That poor is when you can't meet your needs. We're just living within our means. What did he say to that? He said, "Oh, okay, I like this better anyway. It feels real." Those were his exact words. It feels real. Smart kid. He gets that from you and Mom. Marcus was quiet for a moment. "I've been thinking about Mom a lot lately, about what she tried to tell me, about what she knew that I didn't want to see. She loved you. Even when she was frustrated with your choices, she loved you. I know. I just wish I'd listened better. We talked for a few more minutes. About work. About Isaiah's school. About the weather. Normal things. Father and son things. Not weighed down by money or expectations or history. Just present. Just real. When we hung up, I sat at my kitchen table for a long time thinking about that $650 apartment, about spaghetti from a jar, about an air mattress from Walmart, and I thought about how sometimes the smallest spaces hold the biggest changes. The call came on Saturday afternoon. Marcus, his voice carrying a nervousness I hadn't heard in years. Dad, I know this is short notice, but would it be okay if Isaiah and I came for dinner tomorrow Sunday? I was outside splitting wood, stopped mid-swing. Yes. You sure I don't want to impose? You're not imposing. What time? 5-6. Whatever works for you. 5's fine. I'll make something. You don't have to go to any trouble. It's not trouble. It's dinner. A pause. I could hear him breathing. Okay. Thanks, Dad. We'll see you at 5. Sunday came clear and cold. I spent the afternoon cleaning. Not because the house was dirty, but because company was coming and you clean for company, even if it's family, especially if it's family you're trying to rebuild something with. At 4:53, I heard the truck in the driveway, looked out the window. Marcus's old Ford, the one that was paid off because it was too old to be worth financing. He got out first, then Isaiah moving faster, more excited. I opened the door before they knocked. Hi, Grandpa. Isaiah came in first, gave me a hug without hesitation. 8 years old and still believing that people who love you deserve hugs. Marcus followed holding a plastic grocery bag. Brought salad, the bagged kind, and ice cream. Thought Isaiah would like it. Good thinking. We moved into the kitchen. No grand entrance, no performance. Just 3 people figuring out how to be in the same space without the weight of everything that had happened pressing down on every word. I'd made spaghetti, basic. Sauce from a jar hamburger browned and mixed in pasta boiled until it was soft. The kind of meal that fills you up without pretending to be something it's not. Isaiah set the table without being asked. 3 plates, 3 forks, 3 glasses. Napkins folded and placed just so the way someone had taught him mattered. Marcus opened the salad bag, dumped it in a bowl I'd set out. Added dressing. Tossed it with 2 forks because I didn't have salad tongs. We sat, passed food, filled plates. This is good, Isaiah said, twirling spaghetti on his fork the way kids do when they're still learning the mechanics of it. Your grandma's recipe. Well, her method. She always said you brown the meat first, then add the sauce. Makes it taste better. It does taste better. Marcus ate quietly at first. Then, how's the garden looking? Too early to tell. Still got frost warnings through April, but I turned the soil last week. Got it ready. Need help with planting. I could use it. If you're offering. I'm offering. Isaiah looked between us. Can I help too? Absolutely. Every garden needs someone young enough to get excited about watching things grow. We ate. Talked about small things. Isaiah's school in Boston. His teacher who talked too fast. His friend Kevin who collected rocks. Marcus's work at the lumber yard. A guy named Tommy who told jokes that were terrible but made everyone laugh anyway. Normal conversation. The kind that doesn't carry weight because it's not trying to fix anything or prove anything. It's just filling space with words that connect people. After dinner, Marcus stood up and started clearing plates without being asked. Scraped them into the trash. Ran water in the sink. Added soap. You don't have to do that, I said. I know, but you cooked, so I'll clean. Isaiah dried while Marcus washed. I put things away as they finished. 3 people moving around a small kitchen learning the dance of it. When the dishes were done, we had ice cream. Vanilla. Simple. In bowls that didn't match because I'd bought them one at a time over 20 years and never cared if they coordinated. Isaiah ate his fast, Marcus ate his slow. I was somewhere in between. At 7:30, Marcus checked his watch. We should probably get going. Isaiah's got homework. On spring break. Reading assignment, he's supposed to read 20 minutes a day. That's good discipline. They gathered their things, coats, Isaiah's backpack he'd brought with schoolwork inside, Marcus's keys. At the door, I asked the question without thinking about whether I should. Same time next week. Marcus stopped, looked at me, really looked. Yeah, if you want. I want. He paused. Yes, sir, same time next week. Isaiah hugged me goodbye, held on a little longer than necessary. Thanks for dinner, Grandpa. Anytime, soldier. I watched them drive away, stood on the porch until the taillights disappeared, then went back inside to a kitchen that smelled like spaghetti sauce and dish soap and something else I couldn't quite name. Maybe it was hope, the careful kind, the kind that doesn't expect miracles but recognizes small movements in the right direction. One dinner. That's all it was. Spaghetti and salad and ice cream. 3 people at a table learning how to be family again, one Sunday at a time. But it was a start. And starts matter more than people think. The foreclosure hearing was scheduled for April 12th at 2 p.m., Cook County Superior Court Judge Patricia Okonkwo presiding. I got the notice in the mail 3 weeks in advance. Official letterhead. My name listed as co-signer, required to appear or submit documentation explaining my absence. I submitted the documentation, a notarized letter stating I would not contest the foreclosure, that I acknowledged my role as co-signer, that I understood the implications and chose not to intervene. Marcus called me the night before the hearing. Dad, you don't have to come tomorrow, I know that, but I wanted you to know you could, if you wanted to. I know. I'm going. My lawyer says I should, even though the outcome's already decided. She says it looks better if I show up, take responsibility, sign the papers in person. That's probably smart. Will you be there? I thought about it. About sitting in a courtroom watching my son lose a house I'd paid for. About the formality of it, the finality. About whether my presence would help or hurt, or just be another complicated thing in a situation that was already complicated enough. No, this is yours to do. Okay, he sounded relieved. I'll call you after, let you know how it went. I'll be here. The next day I worked in the garden, turned soil, planted early peas and lettuce, checked the greenhouse I'd built from salvaged windows, kept my hands busy and my mind focused on things that grow instead of things that end. At 3:47, my phone rang. It's done. Marcus's voice sounded strange. Not sad exactly, not relieved, something in between. How'd it go? Quick. I thought it would take hours, all this build-up, but it was maybe 20 minutes. The judge asked if I understood what I was signing. I said yes. She asked if anyone had coerced me. I said no. She asked if I wanted to make a statement. I said no. Then I signed, and that was it. House is bank's property now. We have 30 days to remove any remaining items, but there's nothing left. Lauren cleared it out months ago. How do you feel? Silence. Long enough that I thought the call might have dropped. Then, lighter. Yeah. I thought I'd feel devastated, like I'd failed, like I was standing there watching the proof of my failure get stamped and filed. But instead I felt like I was putting down something I'd been carrying too long, something that was breaking my back. That makes sense. Does it because I lost a house, our house, the place Isaiah learned to walk, the place we hosted Christmases and birthdays and all these moments that were supposed to matter. And I'm standing outside the courthouse feeling relieved that it's gone. It was never your house, Marcus. It was a performance, a set piece. You were killing yourself trying to maintain something you couldn't afford so other people would think you were successful. Now you don't have to do that anymore. I keep thinking about the apartment, how small it is, how I can clean the whole place in 20 minutes, how the rent is something I can calculate in my head and know I can cover it, how when Isaiah's there we're in the same room most of the time because there's only one room, and it feels better than that house ever did. Because it's real. Yeah, because it's real. He took a breath. My lawyer asked me if I wanted to pursue anything against you, as the co-signer. She said technically you could have prevented this, that you had obligations. What did you tell her? I told her you fulfilled every obligation you ever had to me and then some. That if anyone breached obligations, it was me. That I'm not pursuing anything against anyone, I'm just trying to move forward. Good. She looked at me like I was crazy, said most people in my situation would be angry, would want someone to blame, would want to fight. Are you angry? No, I'm tired, but I'm not angry. I'm tired of fighting, tired of pretending, tired of trying to be something I'm not for people who don't actually care about who I am. We talked for a few more minutes, about practical things, about the 30-day timeline, about what happened next with Lauren and custody arrangements, about Sunday dinner that week. When we hung up, I went back to the garden. Finished planting, watered everything in, stood back and looked at rows of fresh-turned earth with tiny green shoots just beginning to show. Endings and beginnings. Sometimes they're the same thing. You just have to be willing to let go of one to make room for the other. Isaiah turned 9 on May 3rd. Marcus called me a week before to invite me to the party. It's going to be small, just his apartment. He's inviting some kids from his old school here, the ones he stayed in touch with. 6, maybe 7 kids. We're doing pizza and cake, nothing fancy. Sounds perfect. He specifically asked if you'd be there, said it's not a real birthday without Grandpa. I'll be there. Saturday afternoon, I drove to Marcus's apartment with a wrapped box in the passenger seat. I'd spent 2 weeks thinking about what to get an almost 9-year-old who'd had everything and now had just enough. Who'd learned the difference between want and need. Who'd grown up faster than any kid should have to, but was somehow better for it. The apartment complex was older, set back from the road. 2 stories of weathered siding and small balconies. Kids playing in the courtyard, bikes leaning against railings. The kind of place where people actually lived instead of just staying. I found Marcus's unit on the 2nd floor. Could hear voices and laughter from inside before I knocked. Marcus answered wearing an apron that said Grill Master, even though there was no grill in sight. Dad, come in. The apartment was full, 6 kids running between the living room and the kitchen, paper decorations hanging from the ceiling, balloons tied to chairs, a folding table set up with pizza boxes and paper plates, and a cake from the grocery store bakery that said Happy Birthday Isaiah in blue frosting. It was perfect. Isaiah saw me and ran over. Grandpa? You came? Of course I came. Wouldn't miss it. Did you bring it? Bring what? The present. Dad said you were bringing something special. I might have something in the truck. Can I see after pizza? That's the rule. We ate. 7 kids and 2 adults crowded around a small table and floor space, balancing paper plates, reaching for pizza slices, laughing at jokes only 9-year-olds understand. Marcus moved around the edges, refilling cups, wiping up spills, playing host in a way I'd never seen him do before. Present. Engaged. Not worried about impressing anyone. After pizza came cake. We sang. Isaiah blew out candles, made a wish he wouldn't tell anyone. Then presents. The other kids had brought typical gifts. Video games, Lego sets, a basketball, things wrapped in colorful paper with elaborate bows. My gift was last, simple brown paper, string tied around it. Isaiah opened it carefully, lifted the lid off the box. Inside boots. Not tactical ones like before. Hiking boots. Good ones, the kind that last. Sized up so he'd have room to grow into them. And underneath the boots wrapped in cloth, a compass. Brass. Old. The same one I'd planned to put in the time capsule. Isaiah lifted the compass out, turned it over in his hands, watched the needle swing and settle. It's Grandpa's compass, Marcus said quietly. From the Army. I carried that through 2 deployments, I said. Kept me pointed in the right direction when everything else was confusing. Figured you might need it someday. Isaiah looked up at me. Why would I need it? So you always know which way is home. He stood up, walked over, put his arms around me and held on tight. 9 years old and already understanding things most adults never figure out. I already do, Grandpa. The other kids got bored and went back to playing. Marcus stood in the kitchen doorway watching. His eyes were wet, but he wasn't trying to hide it. Later, after the other kids left and we were cleaning up, Isaiah tried on the boots. Walked around the apartment testing them out. They're a little big. You'll grow into them. That's the point. Good boots last. You take care of them, they take care of you. Like family. Exactly like family. He kept them on the rest of the evening. Wore them while we cleaned up, while we watched a movie Marcus had rented, while he got ready for bed on his air mattress in the living room. When I left, Marcus walked me to my truck. Thank you for coming. Wouldn't have missed it. He talks about you all the time, to his friends, to his teachers, to anyone who'll listen. His grandpa who was in the Army, his grandpa who knows how to build things, his grandpa who tells the truth. He's a good kid. Because of you. No, because he chooses to be. That's all him. I drove home thinking about boots and compasses and 9-year-olds who already understood what home meant. One year after that Christmas morning when I wasn't expected, I stood on my porch watching the first snow of December fall. The phone rang. Marcus. Dad, we're confirmed for Christmas Day. Isaiah and me will be there around noon. I'm bringing the ham. Isaiah wants to make the rolls. Is that okay? More than okay. Lauren's flying him out the day after. She's got him for New Year's, but Christmas is ours. How's she doing? Better. She's engaged. To a guy from her firm. White. From Connecticut. Her parents approve. She seems happy. Or at least she seems like she's doing what she thinks she should do. And you? I'm doing what I want to do. For the first time in my life. After we hung up, I thought about everything that had changed. Marcus still worked at Deshawn's, got promoted to shift supervisor 6 months ago, still lived in that small apartment, still drove that old truck, still showed up every Sunday for dinner. Isaiah split his time between Alaska and Boston, did well in both schools, wore those hiking boots until they fell apart, then asked for the same kind for his 10th birthday. The house in Eagle River sold finally. Bank took a loss. I didn't care. Lauren remarried in October. Marcus sent me a picture. She looked happy. I hoped she was. Richard Mitchell sent me a letter in June, formal, typed, apologizing for any misunderstanding and hoping we could move forward as family. I didn't respond. Some bridges you don't rebuild. You just acknowledge they fell and walk a different path. The article Dana Roberts wrote got picked up by national outlets. I did 2 interviews, turned down 50 more, said what I needed to say and moved on. But the thing that mattered most Sunday dinners, every week, Marcus and Isaiah. Sometimes just Marcus when Isaiah was in Boston. Sometimes just Isaiah when he flew out for long weekends. We'd eat, we'd talk, we'd clean up together, then we'd sit on the porch or in the living room and just be. No performance, no pretense, just family, the real kind. The kind built on showing up and telling the truth and doing the work even when it's hard. I learned something through all of this. Home isn't a place you buy. It's not square footage or granite countertops or the right zip code. Home is where someone leaves the light on, where you're expected, where you can show up as you are and know that's enough. For 30 years, I tried to buy my way into being family, tried to fund my way into being valued. I was wrong. You can't buy respect. You can't purchase dignity. You can't finance love, but you can earn it by standing up, by telling the truth, by refusing to accept less than you deserve. And sometimes when you finally do that, the people worth keeping find their way back. Not everyone, but the right ones, the ones who matter. Before I go, let me know where you are watching from in the comments below. Hit like and subscribe if you believe respect is earned, not bought, and that real family shows up even when it's hard.